Okay, good evening, everyone who's just joined. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's webinar on strategies to help with the 1 hour practical lesson with home economics teacher and now home economics author, Neasa Egan. Neasa is a very passionate and very experienced home economics teacher. She's taught junior cycle, TY, Leave and Cert, as well as LCA, Hotel Catering and Tourism. She teaches in Bagnall's Town in County Carlow. And many of you here this evening might know Neasa from her Instagram page, Come Down Online, where she shares recipes and tips and ideas and resources to help you, her fellow home economics teachers. So we are delighted to have Neasa here with us this evening to talk us through some strategies for success in the 1 hour lesson. So Neasa's going to speak for in and around 40 minutes. And after that, you will have the opportunity to ask some questions. So feel free to pop them into the chat as we go through, and I will make sure to put them to her at that stage. And we will then aim to wrap up the session shortly before 8 o'clock, so you can enjoy some of your evening. So without further ado, I should also just say, if any of you have any technical issues or anything, try and pop a message into the chat, and Karan and Sarah are on hand in the background to help us out in that case. But for now, I will hand over to Neasa.
Great. Hello. Thank you, Clodagh. That was really nice. Obviously, my name is Neasa, Clodagh just mentioned. I am teaching in Bagnallstown, which is the Carlow-Kilkenny border. I am quite nervous, so I'm sorry if I start to speak too fast. I'm sure Clodagh will tell me to take a breath for myself if I do. As Clodagh said, if you have any questions, just pop them into the chat. Hopefully we'll get to everything. Maybe there mightn't be any questions, but you can let us know. I suppose just a little bit about me in terms of the 1 hour class. I have been doing the 1 hour class since 2020, so the last 5 years. So it's been an interesting transition. So I don't know if there's people here who are moving to 1 hour or if there's people who already have it. So if there's any maybe other strategies that you have and you think that's something that works, please write that into the chat too, because obviously we're all here to try and learn from each other. But yeah, thank you so much for coming, because it's so hard the first Monday back after Easter, so I really, really appreciate it. So I suppose the first thing that I want to go through is why we're here. So what I found to be the hardest part of the 1 hour class is the limited time for prep, for cooking, for cleanup, and then obviously the evaluation at the end. So these are kind of the areas that I'm going to try and focus in on. I suppose the area of the 50% cooking exam now, and the need for the culinary skills to, be that little bit kind of step further than they used to be maybe. And also then the stress that the 1 hour brings. So I am so aware that not every school is the same. Not every management is the same, year group, class. So, I'm going to give out ideas. They mightn't all work for you, but I'm just hoping, maybe there's one thing, maybe there's two things that might help. I hope that all makes sense so far. I actually didn't realize that people couldn't talk back to me in this, so it's going to be like I'm talking to myself. So if there is any questions, please pop them into the chat, so I don't feel so alone. But yeah, that's the main thing I just want to come across is, not all of this is going to work for you, but even if one thing, helps, the main thing is trying to, I suppose, help with stress. So the first thing that I'm going to go through, and all of us do this already, is in terms of pre-class prep. So every single one of us will give out the recipe beforehand, but I suppose what I have done differently now since the 1 hour class is, and it sounds, I don't know, is there psychology behind this or what, but having a picture of the recipe, and especially if the picture is in color, I don't know what it is. I suppose it's if you're a visual learner that, and I even find that if I'm looking at a recipe book, I'll be more kind of encouraged to try the recipes that have a picture with them. So having the recipe book with a picture can really help to try and, I suppose, get the kids maybe a bit more engaged and maybe a bit more enthusiastic about the actual, dish that they're making. So it might make them a little bit more kind of like, okay, better get prepared for this. Now, ingredients list, we all give this out. I am so aware that there are some schools where you can't measure at home because the school provides the ingredients. So I'll talk about it later on, but what you could do there is, and what I've started the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, is a TY program. So getting TYs to come in as a practical skills leader, and that they would help to measure out. So I suppose just for those schools who have the 1 hour class, who are doing the weighing out at the start of the class, that's taken up a lot of time that, say, in my class wouldn't, because they would come in with it measured out. Another thing that I've started to do is I would always get them, when I'm going through the ingredients, I would say to them, okay, look at the equipment list. There might be maybe 4 or 5 of them that don't know what a colander is or something like that. And, getting that sorted the class before the practical. So, then instead of the practical being like, Miss, what's colander? You're not spending time showing them what it is. They know beforehand. So that pre-class prep kind of coming in there as well. Another thing now, I am so aware not everyone is going to do this, but not every student, I mean. But I would tend to put up a video link on, say, if you're using Google Classroom or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is, I would put up a video link. Just, it could be a YouTube link, if we're doing maybe the onion chopping, so that they can look at it beforehand. And again, they're not kind of going in blindsided to what they're doing or what they're making. Now, I totally know they're not all going to look at the video, but even if 2 or 3 of them did, they would then help the other ones to get on board to chop the onion right, so that that's saving on time too. And I suppose, the main thing here is, like, every second counts when it comes to the 1 hour class, which we all know. So that could be something as well that maybe could be integrated. Okay, so next one then is, and again, probably all of you do this, and I am actually quite aware that, some of these things you're probably saying, oh, like, I do that already. But I am quite aware that there's some NQTs on this. There's also some student teachers. So I suppose just, something to start off. I also had a few people message me. They're in a single department school. So that's kind of hard as well when you're on your own. So just to get ideas going, I suppose. But this one I have found really good. At the start of every year, whether it's first, second, or third year, I would always start off with something quite basic that's just kind of technique focused on, if it's something like onion chopping, or if it's something like, I don't know, a melting method for a flapjack, starting with something basic just to kind of get them used to it. They mightn't have cooked all of summer, and even before summer, maybe if you're getting the kitchen cleaned, they mightn't have cooked that month, coming up to the summer holidays. So trying to kind of pick quick recipes at the start to get them into it. And then another thing that I would do is trying to be strategic with your recipe selection. So, like, focusing in on a scale, and, say if you're doing something like the whisking method, doing something like, your plain jam sponge with sponge cake first, and then the next week moving on to the Swiss roll, so that they're building on those skills, but also the time then will really be beneficial to them, because they have spent time maybe the week before on the spot time on the figure of eight, and then this time they'll know what the figure of eight is, so there'll be less time needed. So little things like that have really helped, I suppose, just to kind of build on their confidence. And like, I even know, like, I think it was last year, my second year, was the year before, and they hadn't cooked. So it was all obviously summer. And then we went straight into the CBA. And so they hadn't cooked in months. And I did something like the meatballs, and it was just way too much for them. So, you know, you learn from it. And like, I am aware as well that, like, you know, if you are looking at complaint online, like, that you're seeing all the good things, you know, so it doesn't always work out. But I suppose, you know, it's just trying to learn from, you know, your mistakes, and each class is totally different as well. So next thing, and again, I know most probably all have this, but I have even noticed, just in terms of your setup, the difference. So last year, the end of, say, the previous school year, I would have put you know, like the drawer with the sieves, utensils, pot stands, whatever it is. And like, even having that has made such an impact with time, so that, you know, they're not saying, oh, where is this, or where do I put this, where do I get the bowls. Now most of you probably have that, but we got a new kitchen, say, so we kind of had to do all of that a couple of years ago. So that's really helped. Even like, and it sounds really basic, but even like, I would have like unit 2 cooker, unit 2 sink labeled, because, you know, you're saying, someone's asking you, oh, which sink is mine, which cooker is mine, and like, it only takes, you know, a couple of seconds or a minute or two for them to ask, but you are spending an extra minute or two showing them where it is. So like, that minute or two makes such a difference in the 1 hour, the 58-minute class. I always have kind of guides, practical guides on the cabinet doors. So I'll just show you these ones, because it's just a bit closer up. So I would have a cooking checklist, which I'll go through with you in the next couple of slides. But other things that I'd have up in the cabinet door are things like what's in the cabinet. Again, trying to prevent, where does this go? Where do I get that? A big thing that they struggle with, I find, is the onion chopping. So I'd have a visual of that, so that, you know, they can have a look at it before. That was a big thing as well before the exams there recently, before Easter, you know, having a look at that beforehand to make sure, yeah, this is the right way to do it. Another way, I don't know if it's anyone else, but the wash up, they just, doesn't matter how many times you go through it. It's one of those things where, you know, having the dirty equipment at one side and the clean upside down on the draining board. So, you know, having a visual for them. Everyone probably, you know, has different posters of this, but if you don't, it's just something that I have found has helped, because, you know, you can, if you're at the other end of the kitchen, and then you go to see, you know, Johnny up the top of the room, and he doesn't have them upside down, you say, look at your display there in front of the washing up liquid. So just little things like that. Again, just trying to cut off the minutes, seconds of the class to try and combat, I suppose, the stress of the 1 hour. Another poster you could have, I suppose this is more kind of first years, or maybe if you have a TY group who, you know, all haven't done home ec before. So, you know, having posters up saying about the 2-plate system, for example, just to explain it briefly to first years or TYs or LCAs, students maybe who haven't done it. Or if you're doing a life skills class, just having that as a visual for them. This is the cooking checklist that I mentioned earlier. So we're going to send out this checklist to you as an email. And this basically is something that you can edit, because I know every classroom is so different. So this is my one in school. So I have a picture at the start, again, for first years, TYs and LTAs who haven't maybe cooked before. So they have to, this is the way we are going to be cooking. So, one time that you have it set up, take a picture of it, email it to yourself so that you have it, and put it up then for the first years or for the TYs, and say, okay, this is the way the chairs are going to be, so that when they come in, there's no, where do the chairs go? What do I do? So this cooking checklist, you'll see it's just on the cabinet doors. So on the cooking checklist, when they're coming in, and if you're coming in after another teacher, you're not there, you don't need to have anything on the board because you have the checklist on the cabinet doors. So you have here, okay, this is, regardless of what they're making, this is the procedure that they're going to do. So say for me, they have to move the chairs. They mightn't have to in your classroom, if you have stools and they're going underneath, whatever it may be. But things like, putting on the apron, disinfecting the tables, putting a 2-plate system, putting their basins underneath the desk, all of those they can be doing as you're getting set up and you're getting the recipe up on the projector, okay, or if they're using a recipe book, whatever way it may be. But just to give you like a bit of time that we're not wasting that time, that time is being used to get them set up and to get them organized. I actually found this was really good in terms of the third years when they were filling in, their prep time, what they were doing in their prep time. So referring back to the checklist, well, what do you do every week when you're cooking? And, to write that in then into that. And then at the end, if they're kind of starting to slow down a bit and the time is ticking away, getting them to look at the checklist. Okay, well, have I cleaned out the sink? Have I put the food in the compost bin, scraps, little things like that. So that's something that, I have found useful just to get them a little bit more organized, but also, I suppose, trying to, again, help with the 1-hour class. So hopefully, when you do get that, we'll email it out to you. You do find it helpful. Again, you can edit it to what suits your classroom. Okay, so next strategy is how I use the recipe book to focus on setup. So they have their checklist and then you're getting set up, and you can see here in the top picture, I'll have the first half of the recipe on my screen to project onto the projector. And what I would do is they will look at their ingredients, double check they have everything, and then obviously take out their equipment. So what I find is just having that frozen on the screen. If you are in the class before, you can have it already up on the board. But I just find that having that on the one screen really, really helps them. But also it helps me because, again, if someone else is in your class before, to take the time to write up all the equipment on the board, things like that. Now, obviously, it doesn't always work that the projector, like my bulb went today and the projector didn't realize how much I used it until it was gone. But they have the recipe book, so just going through that with them. But it's just, they'll take it off as they go through it that they have everything. And again, that's just trying to save on time, the whole goal of it. The next thing, I suppose, and that's kind of the way I'd have it. Obviously, I wouldn't have the stars and the blue, but I would just have it frozen like that on the board at the start. So, there's about 5 minutes or that. The other thing then is, particularly for first years, and particularly if there is, first year group or a TY group that haven't kind of seen a setup. Again, maybe if you had a third year group or that would be used to it, take a picture of the setup and have that for the students. Or if you don't have time for that, what I might do is, particularly if there was a group who were a little bit, they needed maybe a little bit more, I suppose, support. You could have one table set up. So maybe you could choose their table to set up the equipment on and just have an example and say, okay, this is what your unit is meant to look like. Again, if you have time to do that. So it is just something to maybe have a think about, particularly for the groups who haven't cooked before, maybe just having a table set up or using a picture example like these ones. It might help. Okay, so the next thing is I have been through a home ec inspection. So when it comes to the inspection, learning intentions, it's very hard to get through all that in a practical class. So what I've done is I've designed the recipe page that it will include this. So what I would do is I would use the image as their success criteria and their key skills then for their learning intentions. So in terms of, okay, this is what key skills we're focusing in on today. This is what our dish should look like. So I would, when they have done their setup, so say I have it frozen like this on the screen, when they have their setup done, I would briefly, go through with them, okay, well, today what we're going to be focusing in on are these key skills. So the big thing with, I suppose the big thing with home ec is key skills. It's not the end result, of making a queen cake. It's the skills that they're making, that they're using, and what they could use those for going forward. So that's just something that I have found really helpful, just in terms of setting the criteria for them. And then even are these ones done with, well, let's look at your success criteria. Are they this color? And just trying to get them a little bit more independent with that. So I have found that's just really helpful in terms of keeping it focused for them. So I hope that makes sense. So the next one then is using the recipe for efficient work sequence. So I've frozen it on the first half of the page. Then we've gone to the success criteria. Everything's grand, hopefully. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze the method part. So the pages are designed that you'll have half and half. So, I personally do not have time to be flicking through PowerPoints. So the fact that I just have to do this once has made it so much easier for me in terms of timing. So what I would do with the method is I would circle for them what the spot dems are going to be, so that they know that's where we need to stop. Now, I'm just giving an example here. So say step 5, they have to stop, and they have to stop for the spot dem at testing for the hollow sound. So I would have those labelled just on the whiteboard with a whiteboard marker. And then again, this sounds basic enough, but what I have found really, really helpful is I tick off again with a whiteboard marker the steps that we've done. Because what I kept finding was, what do I do next, miss? What do I do next, miss? And they're well able to do it, but they're just not reading the recipe. So I would say, okay, well, we have step 1, 2, and 3 done. What does it say on the board we need to do next, or in your recipe book? And they're well able to save at this stage. So they're well able to do it, but the main thing here, what I was trying to do and I'm trying to do, is get them a little bit more independent, because they have the recipe in the exam, and it's not all about the exam. I'm not saying it like that, but they'll have a recipe at home as well. They won't have you to tell them, well, what do I do next? Or, and it's the same in the exam. So I just find ticking as I go through it, just with a whiteboard marker, is really helpful, because then there's not, again, you're not spending time telling the same person in different groups, or the same person, sorry, over and over again what you need to do. So that's something that's worked quite well as well, with the recipe, just having that work sequence there for them. Then the next thing, and again, this probably does sound quite basic, is the baking tins. So I know this is very, very basic, but these smaller baking tins and the smaller recipe quantities have made such a difference, because what I was finding is there was recipes, and maybe there's 4 chicken fillets in it, and it was just too much. Or if they were baking something, it was big batches and it just couldn't be done. So what I've tried to do is to concise down recipes so that they'll fit. Say you have your chocolate lava cake here, you have your apple crumble, your things like your lasagnas, your macaroni cheeses. What also has helped with this, and again, probably sounds, so the 2 main ones that I use are the square ones. So they're like 10 by 14 centimeters. You can get other ones like 12 by 15, but roughly that size. And then the 15 centimeter round tins. So what also has really helped with this is it helps so much with portioning, because say we did the chocolate lava cake or the crumble here, they both get one each. There's no, like, and it's again ridiculous, but you all understand me when I say this, but like, even having to go get a spoon, they've done their wash up and then they have to go get a spoon to spoon out, the lava cake that's in the dish into their lunchbox. Then they have to go back down to the room, to get a tea towel, or they just leave the dirty spoon in the sink. So like, and it sounds ridiculous to non-home ec people, but like, you understand me with that, like little things with that, I find has really, really helped. Now, I know there's a big thing with sustainability. So I just want to, I suppose, note that there are recyclable foil containers that you can get now, because obviously sustainability is such a big thing in home ec now, that we don't want to be kind of saying all about sustainability and then saying we're using these disposable ones. You can get recyclable ones, but like, I do think we have to kind of be like realistic and practical with ourselves as well. Like, we're not all going to get the recyclable ones. There are going to be times where you use the disposable ones. So I suppose, like, to be I suppose nice to ourselves about that too, that we can't burn the candle at both ends. So like, there's different companies that do these. Our school, I always do a batch order at the start of the year. Now, obviously, like, I have here as well, like, students could bring in their own dishes, or I just know in my school they wouldn't bring it in. So this is just the best way. But our school, our school would pay for them. So I don't know, is it a thing where that would be an issue with schools? But like, I would definitely, for yourselves, argue the point that this is something that is really, really going to help the students' skill development, all of that. So just something, yeah, to think about. And then the evaluation, which is always an interesting one. I can say here, like, it's never always done. And I suppose it's one of those things that, like, they might only get a few questions done, but it's what, like, we have only an hour, there's only so much we can do. So in the book, I have put together evaluations to go with each recipe. And again, sounds silly, but the amount of time I spend at the printer printing out evaluations and recipes, is ridiculous. And like even stapling, so having this in the one place has made it so much easier for me, because I'm not worrying about, okay, well, Joey's out today. But he has his recipe book at home. He knows he's making whatever next week, or they were out, they didn't do their evaluation. They have it. Or the worst is when you print out all these really nice evaluations that you spent ages making, and then you find them, on the corridor floor, and you're just like, I hear. So if it's in the one place, I just have found it's really helped me. They'll always, so from question 4 downwards, they won't have to have it tasted or baked fully. So if it's still in the oven, they can start from question 4 downwards. So they're able to evaluate it before they need to look at it, because it's going through, like what I've tried to do here is to make sure that there's theory involved in the evaluation, that the theory and the practical are coming in. So there's questions there that are trying to link in with the theory side of things, but also sustainability is in there too. So again, trying to hit on the at least 2 strands there can help. So I hope that makes sense with the evaluation. And if it doesn't, please just put it in the chat. And then, the final thing then, I suppose, is what things that I've kind of done in the last couple of years to help myself. So again, I'm so aware not every management is the same, but supervision in kitchens. So it might be a conversation to have. They might say no, but even if you could get 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something to help yourselves, because realistically, you're in there break time. My kind of argument was as well, you have to be there in the morning. If they've chicken and that, they can't, with health and safety, leave it in their lockers. So someone has to be there to supervise them to put it in the fridge. So it's just something where, again, I know not every management are going to be the same on that, but just something maybe to think about. The other thing that I kind of briefly mentioned, so now this is something that I brought in 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I still haven't perfected it, so if anyone has perfected it that you'd like to share, please do in the chat. But having a TY practical skills leadership program, so basically you'd have TYs coming in who have maybe enjoyed home ec, done quite well in home ec, really love cooking. You could get them to come in to help with junior years, with maybe students who need a bit more support, helping with key skills, or it could be helping to measure out ingredients. What we try and link this with is if anyone's doing like Gashka or anything like that, so volunteering, it could be a thing where maybe you could get some certs together for their TY graduation. And it, like, again, I haven't perfected it yet because TYs are always away on trips and things like that. So if anyone has any ideas. The other one then is countdown timers. So I don't know if anyone has seen these. Now, I don't want to put a timer on because I have my recipe on it. So there's these ones you can get that are magnetic that go onto the whiteboard. So again, it's not to rush the kids, but it's to be like, come on, we only have an hour. So putting a timer up in the corner, having an hour, so that they can see, okay, God, we need to get a bit of a move on. It's an idea. Now, maybe it wouldn't work for everyone, but you could just use regular timers and put them on for an hour, like egg timers. But I just saw these ones and I thought they might be interesting. So if that's, I hope I didn't rush through that too much. But if anyone has questions, please pop them into the chat. Clodagh's going to talk a little bit more about ordering and things like that. But just, I suppose, in terms of the book, it's not just for junior cert. It's could be used for TYs. I use it with my LCA group. I also use it a lot with my life skills class in the autism support class. So yeah, there's lots of different ways you could use it. So yeah, Clodagh's going to talk about the ordering and that. So I'll let her take over.
Super duper. Thank you so much, Neasa. Lots of really useful and practical ideas there. So very much appreciated. Um, as Neasa has mentioned, we are launching Recipes for Life this year. Recipes for Life is a lot more than just a recipe book. So whether you've got, as Nessa said, TYs, junior cycle, LCA, hotel catering and tourism, this is a really practical and flexible book that's going to help your students develop those key food skills and also through those evaluations develop that food literacy as well. It features 35 achievable recipes that, as Nessa has highlighted strongly here, really have been developed with the 1 hour class in mind, and those built-in reflection tasks that accompany every single recipe and with prompts in it that align with the learning outcomes. So if you would like to have a look at what Recipes for Life has to offer, we've put some sample content up on folens.ie today. So even if you've looked before, there has been new samples added today. So do please, when you get a moment, go on to folens.ie, the Recipes for Life program page, and have a look at those. They're very tasty looking, made me hungry just looking at them. The full flipbook will also be available to preview the week after next, so you'll be able to see the book in its entirety at that stage. And then the printed book will be for you in ahead of September for teaching for next year. So let me just to the right side. The right page here so I can show you the relevant information. Apologies for that. Okay. If you would like to purchase the program for your school or to pre-order, the details that you're going to need are on screen currently. It's got the ISBN and things like that. That's the information that your bursar or the person who is responsible for managing the school book scheme in your school is going to need. So feel free to just show them that information. If you have any questions, do also feel free to reach out to your local Folens rep. If you're not sure who that is, again, you go to folens.ie and you can put your school or your roll number in there and it will tell you who that person is. And we'll now open the floor to questions. Okay, so we've got during the presentation, I should just point out that Julie and Leona asked about the foil trays and about school buying them, but I actually think, Nessa, you answered that one. So unless you had any further questions on those, I'm going to consider that one answered. Mary has asked Nessa if you would mind going over the sizes of the foil containers that you use and what works best for your recipes.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I just saw that one pop up about the containers about did the school buy them or not. So our school does buy them. I don't know technically would it be like I know the like the German department got a lot of dictionaries there recently and stationery. So I don't know, and like the art department got stationery with the new book scheme. It might be something maybe to talk about to your management if they don't you know, they're not forthcoming with getting it. It does make such a difference. So, you know, it is part of the class, you know, you could say it's part of the equipment list. So I would hope they would be on board with that. So the sizes, so you'll see here, these are the small kind of rectangular ones. So they're roughly like 10 to 14 centimeters. So 4 by 5 inches are the square ones. So in the kind of new book, we'll call it, Clodagh, we have the measurements in it for you. Now, some of them are like 12 by 15 centimeters. but most of them are 4x5. And then the round ones are 15 centimeters. So now you can get obviously baking dishes that size too, but that would cost a lot. And then just with the wash up, I know someone had mentioned about the recycling their part, but my students do not remember to bring them in. You can only do as much as you can. If they don't recycle that after they've eaten it, you can't tell, you can only guide them to do it. So my students would tend to bring it, they won't bring it back in. So there's a good few recipes that need a dish, but not every recipe needs it. But just like we can only do so much too. So just I know that was one of the questions, not to be hard on yourselves on it. So I hope that makes sense with the measurements, but they are going to be in the book, in the the equipment list. So it's roughly 10x14 or 4x5 inches, and then 15 centimeters.
Thanks, Neasa. Fiona asked, is the book ready to order or being published, and is there an online version for student devices? So I think I put that slide up there a moment ago. It is available to pre-order. It will be available ahead of September, and you'll be able to see the flipbook version of it the week after next. And yes, there will be an ebook as well for student devices.
And teachers can have the ebook as well. Just yes. For just what I was saying about freezing the top half and the second half.
Yeah. Looking for, I think that we've answered the questions as they've come through. Stephanie has asked, their home ec kitchens are used as tutor classes in the morning, not always the home ec tutor. Any suggestions for changing this? I mean, that just might be, Neasa, I don't know if you have anything to suggest on that.
I don't, yeah, because I know some schools, obviously, they don't have enough classrooms, but I suppose, just, I think as well, if management aren't in a practical subject, they mightn't be aware of the little things that make such a difference. So, like I've even said that this year, just even, with being, like, I have to be there for them to let the chicken in the fridge. Like, they don't think of that. It's not done in a bad way or anything, but it's just people who aren't in the subject don't get it, or, and like with home ec, like people don't see how much time extra you have to put in. So, it's important to make them aware of it. Like, as in, no other subject are they going to, go in at lunchtime or break time to let the kids set up, or, even going around checking for onions and sinks. Like, that's the reality of it. So doing tea towels, little things like that. So making management aware of it is a big thing, I find anyway, and that has really helped, because they're just not aware of it. So maybe that might help. Don't know.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Neasa. Well, thank you very much once again to Neasa for leading the webinar, and also to all of you joining this Monday, first day back. It is much appreciated. We hope you enjoyed it, and have an enjoyable rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.